Refreshing Wild Cherry Cola meets smooth cream. The treat you deserve. Pepsi Wild Cherry and Cream. Treat yourself.
Whether you bond over streaming binge-worthy videos, watching sports recaps, video gaming, or by unplugging altogether, the 2026 Lincoln Nautilus Hybrid helps keep you connected throughout your journey. Learn more at Lincoln.com. Available connectivity features and functionality vary by model. Package pricing, trials, and term lengths vary by model. Video streaming and games are only available while parked.
Oh, hi, it's Justin. It's Deprogram, the podcast where we try to get you into a band. That's right, we've done all the work for you. All you have to do is press play and listen. And normally that is indeed what we would do, is try to turn you on to a band. My name is Justin, and somehow if you've stumbled upon this, it's a daily pod, and today is actually Q&A. Welcome aboard. Please hit subscribe. Would greatly appreciate that wherever you're listening to this from. That is what we would normally do on a pod, is we would try to turn you into a fan of whatever band we were talking about that day. So this week is Neutral Milk Hotel, but today is Friday, so that means the Neil Young episode just came out yesterday. So if you're interested in hearing our conversation about Neil Young, go back one episode and listen to that. So Fridays, we decided, are Q&A days. They're not always going to be heavy, but some of them will have some questions will have long answers. So this is, for now, going to be a lot of me talking into a microphone. I hope you're cool with that, because I am. First, a correction. I think this is really funny and goes to show you, what do I remember about things sometimes. So John corrected me. The Gin Blossoms episode that we were talking about earlier this week on season 5, it was from year 5, 2020. We did stop because I didn't listen. I listened to the wrong version of one of the records. So we did stop for 30 minutes so I could listen to it. I remember that getting bandied about. I don't remember. But to be fair, since then, we've done a great job of making sure everybody is listening to the same things. And it's why I've been so insistent that we all have the same starting point. Because if you're not listening to the same things, you're not going to come across the right answers. So I don't remember how I edited that, but I must have done some editing, because yeah. So that's a slight correction from earlier this week on Tuesday, our year 5 episode. Also, I wanted to take this time before we get into the questions to say thank you to everybody who's reached out and said they'd like to hear from years 6 to 10. I will do that. I'm going to take a brief respite from that part of this so that year 10 can kind of get further along. And then we can, because that's only another month worth of stuff, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Yeah, that's only 4 more episodes. So I'll wait and do that, as we go. It has been fun looking back on each year and trying to remember things that happened on each of these episodes. And, a lot of times it's very vivid, and other times there's things there like Gin Blossoms where I know something happened, but I'm not exactly sure what. All right, so in the Discord, Andrew asks, you've mentioned how much you enjoyed getting into Failure after that band episode. I know we only covered the first half of their discography on the episode due to Spotify availability. With a new album coming out very soon, I was wondering if you've had a chance to get into the back half of their discography. The back half of their discography after their reformation, and if so, what have you liked the most from it? Sadly, no. I have not had a chance to listen to, I think it was 3 other records since they got back together that have not gone back onto Spotify. I know there's like 8 million reasons not to be on Spotify, but that's not what we're here to talk about. I just need to make space for it. And now that I'm doing this, the daily, and we're getting so far ahead on the daily, on the regular feed episodes, I think I might be creating space to find time to listen to things like that. So here's hoping, fingers crossed. But yeah, man, I absolutely adore Failure. And even more recently, I turned my bass player into a Failure fan because I sent him Frogs, a couple months ago, just because the bass, it goes hard on that. And he was like, whoa. And then I was like, I'm surprised. A couple practices ago, I was like, I'm surprised you didn't get into Failure. They seem kind of right up your alley. Like this mix of hum and local H. And he was like, no, I liked it, like the one song I sent him. And then a couple days later, he goes, Failure rules. And he sent me Princess. And so I think I may have put him on to Failure. All this to say, eventually I will make space to go listen to those other records. I have heard the new song because that did hit Spotify, and I got auto-fed it. And I was like, what's going on here? Oh, it's Failure. So I was aware that Failure does have a new record coming out. And I guess really, is that something we could do here? Could we do listening parties? I think technically we could talk about the records. We could probably do a listening party on the Discord. I don't know. If that's something you're interested in, let me know. If you are somebody who is a regular listener and just come across this, or if you are a new person to the pod and just coming across this and would be into that idea of listening parties, I think we can figure out a way to make that work. I don't know. Question mark. There we go. So Chris Lewoski, I asked on Instagram if anybody had any pressing or deprogram questions, and he wanted to do a bit, and I told him, if you think I'm not going to answer this, you're crazy. His question, the fuck is your problem? Where to begin? The fact that there's clearly something wrong with me to want to continue doing this program the way that I do it. There's clearly, the core of why I want to do it is it gives me an excuse to dive into all these bands, and it gives me guides to get into these bands instead of just kind of willy-nilly, like bands, like the Motels that I never would have found. Failure, I probably never would have found Failure without this show. I would have never had the excuse to finally dive in on Hum. At this point, that was a couple years ago, but I adore Hum. Jimmy World, Paramore, like the list goes on, but it's a way for me to find new music, or at least new music to me. And it's a way to kind of get a lens in on what my friends are into. But why? Why do I want to do that? I don't know, man. It feels like I've talked to Gavin a lot about this recently, and it's kind of come up on some after the facts and stuff. Like, it feels like right now it may not be important in like the world sense of the world may not need deprogrammed, but the deprogrammed world needs deprogrammed. Like, we need to be conversing. We need the community that this brings. And it has brought a lot of conversations together outside of just the pod and outside of just even these dailies. It's brought conversation into the Discord and, these message group chats where we're planning to do an episode and everybody's kind of talking about whatever other music and stuff. So it's brought people together, and I feel like we sorely need that. So what the fuck is my problem? I don't know. I'm sick, I guess. And I'm hoping. I'm hopeful. That's what my problem is. I'm hopeful. I think that's a good way to wrap up that question. Gavin asked this and said it was maybe an after the fact conversation, but I can answer it here, even though because it isn't deprogrammed related, but I can answer it here. So he wants to know, do I have any Pumpkins on vinyl? Am I getting the big vinyl box sets? Are you passing on some of them? Are you waiting to find a used copy? What are your thoughts on the Pumpkins vinyl situation? And also, did you get the greatest hits they just officially released on vinyl for the first time? And what do I think about the song selection? I'd have to look and make sure, because if it's Rotten Apples, Judas O, that went out on disc, which I think it is, I always liked that song selection. Because some of the singles weren't hits, like Muzzle. Like some of the songs that I would have included, like Muzzle, wouldn't be counted as hits, and so I can understand why they wouldn't be included. But it's got Stand Inside Your Love, Ava Adore, Perfect, Zero, Rhinoceros, I think, from Gish. You know, at the time when it came out, I was like, well, what, where's this song? Where's this song? Where's this song? And I mean, upon reflection, it is a greatest hits record, and so it's going to have the hits, Tonight, so on and so forth, Bullet with Butterfly Wings. Those are all the ones you'd expect there, and so they're all there. Everlasting Gaze, if it includes Judas O, then it's got some bangers that were from Machina 2, like Lucky 13, and some stuff that are technically like extra cuts from Adore, like stuff that just hit the floor from Adore. And that one is really cool. I like that one a lot. A really weird cover of Soul Power by James Brown. Wouldn't expect that from the Pumpkins. They don't typically record a lot of their covers. There's the few that are on the Airplane Flies High box set. I don't know that they've recorded, well, Landslide, of course, which I believe Landslide is on the greatest hits, if I recall correctly. To answer your other question, so I have Gish, I have Siamese Dream, I have Melancholy and Infinite Sadness, Adore. I just got Machina, which just came out. I did not get the Machina box set, which I wanted to do, for that includes like everything. But it was just a little too pricey, a little out of my range. I might cop it on disc if it gets printed to disc. But it's awesome to hear these songs on vinyl. When hearing Machina the way it's supposed to be is like what I was really hoping for. I just couldn't spring for it. I do have Sear as well, and I think that's it. So most of the first run, the entirety of the first run minus Pisces. And yeah, I'm mostly trying to score them used, but they just don't come through. And I think Zeitgeist may not have even gotten pressed to vinyl. So I don't imagine I'm going to be catching a break on any of those. So, I have a Gory Mori May, duh. the newest release. I bought that directly from them. Yeah. I want all of them, but it's at this point, like the few that I don't have is just going to be, opportunity is going to just have to present itself. It's going to have to be right price. And I would do anything. It would be awesome to come across like a used version of Siamese Dream, because I've got one of the represses, a more recent repress, and it sounds great. Don't get me wrong, but I imagine original pressing sounds better. Anyway, I didn't want to get too in the weeds here on the Pumpkins, but I did get a Pumpkins related question. I think technically it's not a deprogrammed related question, so maybe I should have kept that one. Whatever, man. I wanted to answer it. So Joe told me earlier this week not to read his question until I was about to go on. So I'm waiting till now to open up the text message. If you're listening to this, Joe, then you know I am literally reading it as I'm about to say it. Live take, top 5 best concert shows you've been to. All right. So I've seen the Pumpkins 3 times. 2007, 2010, 2023. Of those 3, because I don't want to take more than one of the Pumpkins, I'm going to go with the most recent in 2023. Even though the magic I felt when I finally got to see them in 2007 cannot be duplicated. Like, that can't be beat. But going in 2023 with Brian and us turning towards each other and singing Jelly Belly together, and just, I got to see Everlasting Gaze, I got to see Doomsday. Like I've talked about this ad nauseum, seeing some of the songs that I didn't think I'd ever get to see them play live. And I never thought that James was going to come back into the band. So, and then in 2010 when I saw them, Jimmy wasn't even in the band. So it's 3 out of 4 original members of the band that I got to see. They sounded great. Kiki Wango, no, I'm sorry. Was Kiki in the band yet? Yeah. 2023. I think it may have still been Jeff. I'd have to look that up. But the band sounded great. And Katie Cole, an excellent addition to the live show. So when I saw them in 2007, again, some of the songs that they played, it was like typical Billy fashion at that time. Art for art's sake is what he called it, and they did a couple like Ava Adore numbers, and I just loved it. It was a great show, but it was at a festival, and there were so many other things that kind of took away from the experience. Namely, the Pumpkins were the reason I was at that festival, because I hadn't seen them yet, my favorite band, and I had people trying to drag me away from that concert. They were like, third song in, hey, let's beat the traffic or whatever. You want to go? I'm like, are you kidding? This is the whole reason I'm here. So that kind of took away from that 2007. So like I said, I'm going to go with 2023 because of the vibes and because being there with Brian was just awesome. Number 2, I think I'm going to go with Blink-182. That time we saw them, Joe, in DC. So this would have been what, probably 23 as well. May have been 24. So we saw them like 3 times in 2 years. So one was Raleigh, one was Charlotte, one was DC. But the DC time, even though I think the show was better in Charlotte, they sounded a little bit better. I think they were a little tighter in Charlotte. Again, extenuating circumstances, like the people in Charlotte kind of stunk around us, like they were not cool. But same situation where we're watching Blink-182. We didn't think we'd ever get Mark and Tom back together again, let alone on stage again, let alone working on new music again. I mean, at this point, One More Time wasn't quite out, I don't think. Because it was just the reunion tour. I think. My timeline might be jacked. I think Edging might have been out, but they were still working on the rest of the record. And I mean, we talked about this on the Punk Pod. We talked about this on After the Fact, I'm sure, several times. But I cried. I cried happy tears being in this place with one of my best friends, seeing one of my favorite bands in a lineup I didn't think I'd ever get to see again, seeing songs that I didn't ever think I was going to get to see live, and just being in that experience was just too much in all the good ways. It was just great. And I was so happy to be there. And it really is. And, added bonus, I got turned on to Turnstile that day. And we got to see them again in Charlotte. And I've since become quite a big fan of Turnstile. They rule. So, like, it had all these like extra things that really kind of push it over the top. Again, the band sounded great, yes. But it was all the other stuff that really kind of ramped that one up for me. And I'd seen them two other times before those run of shows, and I was let down in 2005. They were better in 2009, but I was let down in 2005, which I think I'll come back to this because 2005 might come back up. So number 3 would be the time I saw Local H at the Peppermint Beach Club in 2005. I've talked about this a lot. It would have been right around the corner from my birthday. I remember it vividly. I mean, again, Local H, second favorite band. Like, I've long since said that. Anybody who knows me knows that. I was getting to see them for the first time. They were touring. It was the Alive of 5 tour, so they were touring Whatever Happened to PJ Souls, but they weren't. When you come in the door, Scott Lucas from the band is just handing out a set list requests. Like, what do you want us to play tonight? Which at the time, I hadn't seen before. I was like, what is this? I get to help to decide the set? That's cool. I'm sure plenty of bands had done it before. I'm sure plenty of bands have done it since, but it was a new concept to me. I was seeing them in what amounted to a dive bar. My second favorite band in a dive bar, and the lead singer, guitar player is telling me, hey, you can help pick the set. And then I went to buy t-shirts from Scott because he was manning the merch table. And I mean, it was just a cool experience. And then Riddle of Steel opened up for them, and they ruled. And unfortunately, they're long gone at this point. But Riddle of Steel ruled. And all of this, like I mentioned, it was around my birthday because there was a hurricane coming through. So they had a show in the middle of a hurricane, and it was all of this made to like just a super memorable night for me. I love that show. I also got turned on to Amstel Light that night because Scott was drinking it. Yes, there was a time where I was that guy, and if I saw my dude drinking something, I'd be like, yeah, I'll drink that too. So I got an Amstel Light that night, and I had a run of being like way into Amstel Light. So that's number 3. Number 4, the Aquabats. I think I'm going to go with the first time just because I didn't know quite. No, you know what? Strike that. I'm going with the second time, which was just last year, the Aquabats, because Padfoot opened for them, and I brought my youngest with me, and Padfoot is one of her favorite bands, and so she was fired up to see Padfoot. She wasn't all that excited about the Aquabats, and then the Aquabats started, and her face lit up. She was so geeked up about the Aquabats. I knew what to expect. I knew that it was going to be awesome. But to be able to share that with my kid really kind of takes it to that next level. Again, I think technically the first show may have been more like, it may have blown my mind a little bit more, but having that experience with my kid definitely bumps up that second time I saw them. So that takes us up to number 4. Number 5, number 5 is Weird Al. Yeah, I'm not going back to 2005. Number 5 is Weird Al for sure. And I can't remember what year it was, but it probably would have been like 16, 17, somewhere around there. It came to Newport News. And it just, you look at these lists, the only things ahead of them, ahead of Al, is 3 of my favorite bands, Sorry, Al. As awesome as you are, as much as I love you, you're not topping Pumpkin's local H blank. Sorry. And honestly, if I didn't have that experience with my kid, you could probably swap Aquabats and Weird Al. But Al puts on just a show. It is all the songs you want to see. You know, I could do without the Star Wars one, but whatever, man. Most people like it. Just because I don't doesn't mean anybody else needs to be off board. But everything else about that is such an experience. He's an absolute showman, and there's changes. There's costume changes rather. There is a video aspect. There is costume changes that coincide with the video aspect. He comes out into the crowd. Again, it's all the songs that you'd probably expect to see, and they're all great. Aside from that, like, that's one of the few shows where I feel like I'd be willing to kick up to that VIP thing where I'd get to meet him, because he seems like just an awesome dude to just have a few minutes with. So, you know, I'm putting a little bit on him there, but it doesn't change the fact that, yeah, you could swap Aquabats and Weird Al, but Weird Al is for sure in my top 5 without a shadow of a doubt. And at a time, I could argue that Al might have been number 1 at one point before the recent Blink and Pumpkins runs. So I think maybe you can change the order of these, possibly, you know, as I get further away from them, you know, and I'm able to recalibrate and whatever else comes in. But I don't think those are changing. I'll give you 2 extras that were kind of on the outs. I saw, Flaming Lips, duh. I saw Flaming Lips. Their show is great, and I wouldn't have hesitated to add them into this before I saw Aquabats. Aquabats really kind of took their place. And then Green Day in 2005 blew Blink out of the water. They were touring together, and Green Day was just unreal. And again, I'm not sure if that is just dissatisfaction with Blink that night, and in hindsight, Green Day just looks really great, or if Green Day really was just that good. Who knows? So anyway, that does it. Today is Friday, so we will see you all on Monday. Goodbye.